I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm pulling off your masks.
Threatens to destroy my country, the State of Israel.
4 days ago, the world held its breath. Ibrahim Traoré had spoken. A deadline had passed, and Israel said nothing. No reply. No recognition. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't calm the room, it charges it. People watched. Leaders waited. Critics scoffed. Supporters hoped. And for 72 hours, the silence from Jerusalem echoed louder than any speech. That silence cracked. Standing before a packed briefing room, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stepped forward. Not a word wasted. No time for pleasantries. He was there to speak directly to Africa, to the world, and most of all, to Ibrahim Traoré. We have heard the words of President Traoré. And to those who believe Israel can be intimidated by threats or timelines, Netanyahu said. Pausing briefly, we will not be dictated to. It was a line that sparked immediate headlines, sharp, bold, and uncompromising. But beneath that familiar tone of strength, there was something else. Something new. Not quite concession, not quite escalation, but unmistakably aware that this was no longer a small diplomatic scuffle. This was global.
Africa is not our adversary.
Netanyahu continued. We respect the independence and aspirations of all nations, but Israel will never apologize for defending its sovereignty or its right to choose its allies. It was the official response the world had been waiting for. But then came the unexpected. Netanyahu proposed the formation of a new regional dialogue, one that would bring African and Middle Eastern leaders to the same table. Not under pressure, it's not under threat, but under recognition that the world is changing, and the voices shaping that change are no longer coming only from Washington, Brussels, or Beijing. He called it the New Equilibrium, initiate a platform to reset the tone between Israel and Africa. The invitation was extended to any nation willing to engage in open, direct conversation without preconditions. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't surrender. But it wasn't silence either. Across the African continent, reactions were swift and split. Some saw Netanyahu's move as a win for diplomacy, proof that Traoré's stand had pierced the usual veil of dismissal. Others saw it differently. Strategic deflection to slow-growing support for Traoré's movement in Burkina Faso. President Traoré released a short but pointed statement. We do not demand dialogue. We demand dignity. Dignity is not granted at summit sit, is shown in policy. Did not reject the offer, but he did not endorse it either. And that ambiguity only deepened the tension. Meanwhile, more African nations began taking independent actions. Senegal froze a pending agricultural deal involving Israeli investors. Namibia postponed a defense procurement agreement. Even Ghana, typically neutral, requested a formal review of its diplomatic protocols with Israel. But it wasn't just governments moving. It was people. In Kinshasa, students marched with banners, reading Africa Decides. In Addis Ababa, civil society leaders held forums on the future of African alliances. From Cape Town to Cairo, the energy was unmistakable. Something had shifted. Not just in policy, but in posture. For decades, African nations were expected to respond. Now they were setting the terms, and while the West issued its usual calls for restraint, this time those calls seemed to echo without weight. No country openly condemned Traoré. No major power dismissed Netanyahu's concern. But everyone seemed to understand this was not business as usual. This was momentum. Inside Israel, the reaction was mixed. Some praised Netanyahu for addressing the situation before it spiraled. Others criticized him for even acknowledging Traoré at all, arguing that engagement would legitimize a leader turning Africa into a geopolitical counterweight. But for many younger Israelis, the speech was overdue. In Tel Aviv, one activist wrote online, "If you ignore the continent long enough, don't be surprised when the continent stops asking." Now, global media has entered full analysis mode. Think tanks, foreign ministers, and policy experts are debating one question: has Traoré broken the unspoken rules of diplomacy or rewritten them? Traoré's message wasn't only about Israel, was about the world's double standards. It's about how Africa is included when it's convenient, ignored when it's not. His deadline forced a response. And that response, however careful, proves something undeniable. Africa's voice can no longer be sidelined. So now we find ourselves in a moment that no one predicted. Not a war, not a treaty, but a challenge to how global power has traditionally functioned, where the next steps may not be driven by weapons or wealth, but by will. Traoré spoke with conviction. Netanyahu responded with resolve. But this is no longer just a standoff between two men. This is a ripple becoming a wave, one that could shift alliances, reshape diplomacy, and redefine what global respect really looks like. The real question now isn't who won the moment, but who shapes what comes next. What do you think? Did Netanyahu respond as a leader or as a politician caught off guard? Has Traoré started something that can't be stopped? And are we witnessing the rise of a new global South alliance? Louder, bolder, and more united than ever before? Let us know in the comments. Drop your flag. Tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe Africa's voice belongs at the center, not the sidelines, hit that like button. Because this isn't just another story. This is history. And it's being written right now.